Hey, this is Scott, and today we're going to be taking a look at the image quality of the Tamron 85mm f1.8 BC compared to a couple of Canon lenses. If this is your first time to the channel, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Tamron did send me this lens, so thank you to them for that. But as always, this will be my own opinion and thoughts after having used this lens for a while, but I will also provide you with enough material that you can make your own judgments. All the files from this review will be downloadable, so there'll be a link to that in the description. Be sure to check that out if you want to make a better judgment for yourself. This video will focus just on the image quality of this lens compared to a couple of Canon lenses. So if you want to see more about the build quality or design or other things like autofocus, be sure to check out my first look video or my final review, which will be coming soon. I'll have both of those linked in the description below and also on screen now, so be sure to check that out if you want to see more details. I'll say right up front that it is very hard to find fault with this Tamron lens. Purely in technical terms, it does beat the Canon 1.2 and 1.8. But the 1.2 does hold a special place in my heart. It's my most loved and most used lens. There's more to a lens than technical ability, so let's take a look at each characteristic one by one. While it's not totally free from chromatic aberration, it does very well, even wide open, especially when you compare it to the Canon 1.2 and 1.8. It's more or less the same in terms of flare. In very challenging situations, you can see a little bit of ghosting, but it's hardly noticeable. And again, when you look at it compared to the Canon, it's just a world's difference. The Tamron does have a little bit more of a clinical look, while the flare on the 1.2 is actually kind of artistic in certain situations. It might be a matter of taste, but again, the Tamron does very, very well against flare. Sharpness-wise, the Tamron is pretty much on par with the Canon 1.2, but keep in mind that that's when the Canon is stopped down to 1.8 and the Tamron is wide open. Wide open at 1.2, the Canon is a little bit softer, but again, there's also a shallower depth of field, so it's kind of hard to judge and compare. But again, the Tamron is a very, very strong performer here, even wide open at 1.8. The Canon 1.8 does fall behind a little bit in terms of sharpness, but it's definitely not bad. I think it's very usable, and if you're looking at these lenses in terms of sharpness, I don't think that there's a significant enough difference to make a decision for one or the other based only on that. The Tamron at 1.8 has a bit more vignette than the Canon 1.2 does, but again, keep in mind that the 1.2 is stopped down at that point. When you open it up to 1.2, the vignette is about equal to the wide open 1.8 on the Tamron. Moving on from here to f2.8, f4, and so on, the Canon 1.2 does have the best performance because it is stopped down more than the other lenses are. The Canon 1.8 seems to perform very similarly to the Tamron in terms of vignette. These aren't very scientific vignette tests, but for portrait lenses especially, vignette has never bothered me. You can correct it in the software, and even without correcting it, I think it can have an artistic value, so whether you care about it or not is probably dependent on the user, and also how you're using it, if you stop it down, if you shoot wide open. So I just hear the images and you can kind of judge by yourself whether it's something that bothers you or not. It's never bothered me on any of these lenses. Bokeh is something that's very personal, so I'll just provide you with the images and you can make a judgment of your own. Finally, distortion doesn't seem to be an issue with any of these lenses. Again, I didn't do overly scientific testing, but distortion has never bothered me on an 85mm lens. If it's something that you are really specifically concerned about, then I'm sure there are more scientific tests on all of these lenses out there. But as far as for me, it didn't affect my images at all, and even when I tried to test it with some straight lines, I couldn't notice anything fishy. Again, you can download all of these images for yourself to make your own judgment, so be sure to check the link in the description. As far as image quality goes, the Tamron is very, very impressive. The 85 1.2 again does hold a special place in my heart, and I think it's more of an artistic lens, where the Tamron is more of a clinical, very well-performing lens. Which one you prefer is up to you. It also comes down to price, which is quite different between these two lenses. And there's a lot of other factors as well, which I will mention in my final review. So be sure to check that out. Again, there's a link in the description for when that's ready. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I will definitely get back to you. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to see more. As always, thank you for watching.